Right now, the Middle East is on fire. Israelis are huddled in bomb shelters as Iran threatens more deadly strikes, and 3 American troops and at least 9 Israelis were killed after Iran unleashed a barrage of missiles vowing revenge. The U.S. and Israel killed the head of the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, Iran's supreme leader, who ruled a regime that funded Hamas, Hezbollah, armed militias across the region, chanted death to America, and pushed its nuclear program to the edge. This morning, Tehran vowing revenge. Missiles are flying, global oil routes are at risk, and the world is watching to see whether this is the collapse of a terror regime or the start of a much wider war. Joining us now, retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General, always great to get your expertise. Thank you for your service and for being with us this morning.
Jan, thanks again for having me.
Are we witnessing the beginning of the end for a regime that sponsored terror for decades, or do you think this could also be the beginning of a longer and more dangerous chapter?
Jan, the United States and Israel has been very successful in isolating Iran during the last 2 days. Part of that is destroying their military and civilian command and control. That means that they're fighting deaf, dumb, and blind. But part of it is Iran, out of an act of desperation, striking civilian sites in countries around the region that isn't drawing in those countries. It's further isolating Iran and providing additional support to America and American presence in those countries. And I think it, again, is an act of desperation from a regime that realizes that their days are numbered.
Also, when you hear 3 American troops were killed in all of this, when you hear that, what goes through your mind as a former commander?
Jan, it's heartbreaking. Every one of those military members have volunteered to serve our great country. And it just breaks my heart to think about those deaths, their family members, their friends, their colleagues, and their units. And I think it's important to realize that military complex operations are extremely difficult. We make them look easy in Midnight Hammer or in Venezuela or elsewhere, but they're always fraught with risk. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of that risk realized in the last couple of days.
Yeah, is this the kind of action that restores deterrence globally, not just against Iran, but against China, but against Russia? Or could Moscow and Beijing see an opportunity here? What's your thoughts?
Jan, deterrence comes down to 2 factors: strength of capability, we've got it, and strength of will, we have demonstrated it. And especially in the last year, we have seen our assets and Israeli assets shred the Russian and Chinese air defenses of Iran and Venezuela. I think all of that puts into their minds a firm understanding that we do have strength of capability, superior capability, and will. And I think it does provide a huge dose of deterrence as a result.
How significant is it strategically to remove the leader of the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism in a single operation?
Jan, Iran has actually been the most consistent adversary to the United States for the last 4.5 decades. They have consistently targeted Americans in the region and beyond. They are that world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. They have created an arc of instability around the region that has ruined the lives of people throughout the Middle East. And they have no problem slaughtering tens of thousands of their own citizens. This is significant. Like I said, I think it's the beginning of the end. And now it is incumbent upon the Iranian people, like the president challenged them to do, to rise up and overthrow the regime from within.
Very quickly now, Iran, we know, targeting U.S. bases and also trying to, shut off shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. What are the military options here? And talk about the significance of that shipping channel when it comes to providing, the rest of the world with these oil shipments from the very oil-rich countries there in the Middle East.
Jan, number one, it's important to realize that the United States now under President Trump enjoys energy independence. So we are not reliant on oil flows, but about 20% of the world's oil flows do flow through the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. There have been maybe up to a 20% spike in oil prices at this point, but one of the reasons we're destroying Iranian command and control and naval sites is to shore up that region as quickly as possible to get back to those flows going to our allies and partners around the world.
All right, General John Teichert, always a pleasure to talking to you, sir, and to get your perspective this morning. We will continue to follow this defining moment for the world, and we appreciate you joining us.
You got it. Thanks, Jen.
With Iran's supreme leader dead, ending a nearly 40-year iron rule, tonight there are two major questions. Who's now running Iran and what comes next? Our Christian Flores spoke with a prominent opposition leader who fled Iran 20 years ago and what he says must be included in the country's future.
They broke my wrist and they destroyed my knee. They broke 50 bones in my body.
Amir Fakhrivar wears his past on his face and body.
A lot of scars on my face.
Permanent reminders of why he left his home country of Iran.
When I was 16, that was the first time I was arrested. The charge was criticizing the supreme leader. I spent more than 5 years in prison, under torture, in solitary confinement. Trust me, the tortures in Iranian prison is not easy.
That pain and suffering birthing a revolution.
At the prison cell, we created this organization.
Fakhrivar and fellow political prisoners created the National Iranian Congress, an organization that has pushed for regime change in Iran. A change that could be on the horizon in the wake of joint U.S.-Israel military strikes killing the Ayatollah.
The entire world have been waiting to see him getting killed. And that is one of the moments everybody will remember.
What is next for Iran? What do you hope happens next? What are the steps that need to be taken?
The answer is not to go back to another absolutism, either king or supreme leader or whatever. The answer is to go toward a constitution, rule of law. Every nation needs one Thomas Jefferson to come up with the idea of constitution.
Fakhrivar wants to construct a constitution with collaboration.
We invited the various opposition figures to come together from the different groups to come together and start the conversation.
Conversation leading to words on a page.
This is possible. If it was not possible, last week, 3 days ago, after seeing the supreme leader is getting killed like this, it's very possible. And fighting for life, liberty, and equality before the law for everyone.
Christian Flores, 7 News.
According to President Trump, Iran's new potential leadership said they're open to talks with the U.S. and he's willing to talk to them as well. But what could Iran's new leadership look like? Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. Let's just start, Emma, with a public statement. Trump saying 48 Iranian leaders have been killed in these ongoing strikes.
Right.
What has the IDF reported thus far?
So the IDF, they released a graphic that's a little bit broader than President Trump's figures, and they claim that a huge chunk of Iran's senior leadership has been eliminated, obviously including the supreme leader, also Iran's chief of staff, top Revolutionary Guard commanders, and the head of its missile forces. But it also lists leaders of Iran-backed groups, those proxy groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis that we've been talking about. Some of these figures were reported killed previously, and not all of these names have been independently verified in this current round of strikes, but it just goes to show how instrumental this round of strikes was.
And with that kind of leadership vacuum, who is likely actually in charge right now?
So Iran's constitution, under Iran's constitution, a temporary 3-person leadership council steps in immediately. That includes the president, the judiciary chief, and a senior cleric from the Guardian Council. But in practical terms, the Revolutionary Guards that are surviving the commanders likely hold real operational control in the immediate aftermath, so that's important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, certainly. We are watching what is happening unfolding, but also what could come. Emma, thank you. And later on, Emma, we'll be back to dig into what could come next for Iran. The IDF now says it has eliminated what it calls all senior terrorist leaders in Iran, including the country's supreme leader. If accurate, this would represent one of the most significant decapitation strikes in modern Middle East history. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And President Trump, we know, has said that he is willing to talk to potential new leadership.
Yeah.
Speak to us about the process that could follow.
Yeah, so an 88-member clerical body called the Assembly of Experts, they have to select one new leader, and legally it's supposed to happen as soon as possible. So Iran's foreign minister says that could happen within days. This is all according to Al Jazeera, which suggests that contingency plans were already pretty much in place. So right now, though, a temporary 3-person leadership council steps in immediately. That includes the president, the judiciary chief, and a senior cleric from the Guardian Council.
But it doesn't look like regime change would happen right away. That, could take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an automatic thing that would happen. The Iranian system was really built with redundancies to survive assassination attempts. The bigger question here is really whether the Revolutionary Guard consolidates power quickly or whether internal fractures emerge that the regime just can't contain. We've seen that with the protests recently. Either way, this is one of the most consequential leadership ruptures that have happened in Iran since 1989.
Absolutely. Emma, thank you.
Thanks.
And for more on this Fact Check Team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code or visit thenationaldesk.com.
Right now, at least 3 U.S. service members have been killed after Iran fired retaliatory missiles and drones across the Middle East, striking U.S. bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE. And they're not stopping after the U.S. and Israel took out Iran's supreme leader and more than 40 regime officials at the core of the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. Joining us now to break it all down is Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, retired Army aviator and international military strategist. Colonel, first, thank you for your service and for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Pleasure to join you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Let's start here. When you look at the target, the IRGC command structure and defense missile and drone networks, how do you measure what the U.S. has been able to do successfully, and how long could it take to destroy Iran's warfighting capabilities?
Yeah, both great questions. And I'll tell you right now that this is what I would call a perfect surgical strike that's gone extraordinarily well. Lots of aircraft, 2 different, what they were Israeli and American fighter jets, bombers, and different assets. Between the degradation of their radar systems, their ability to connect things through cyber and many other things, this is an extraordinarily well done military exercise, or military operation so far. America can be very proud of its military and know that it is still a force to be reckoned with and the most powerful military on the world stage, and we're proving it in action as we speak. No surprise right now that we're successfully destroying their air defense. We're basically walking through Iran right now, and they cannot respond to us. They can't do anything to us at all. That's a message to not only the Iranian people but to the world that we can almost operate with impunity most places on the planet, and that's a significant message to some very specific countries around the globe. So air defense artilleries, the missile sites and silos, we've got most of their mobile launchers already, probably 2/3. We're well into destroying their Navy to keep the straits open. I think the nuclear equation right now is not something we need to worry about. They're not going to be able to do that. And right now I say the top target is going to be making sure their Navy is taken care of. But
right, what happens?
It's quite the impressive move to remove their command structure, their people, 41.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But what happens next inside Iran? Does this set the stage for the Revolutionary Guard to consolidate power? Could we see more chaos spill out across the region as a result? What's next?
We absolutely could. And when you talk about chaos, first of all, you're already seeing that a little bit because Iran's just seems like it's flailing at every country in the Gulf region as well as Cyprus. This is a nation that's realizing, whose leadership is realizing that it's actually losing power, that it's probably about ready to lose its status, and they're just going to keep launching things at everybody, which is interesting because they're making enemies of everybody around them right now. That's externally.
How do you contain escalation without signaling weakness? I mean, is there a clear off-ramp, or does deterrence now require overwhelming and sustained pressure?
Well, I think the off-ramp is basically when those systems that can reach outside the borders of Iran, specifically the ballistic missiles and things like that, are ineffective, or they've run out of them. And that's probably the critical thing right there, is that they can't affect the rest of the nations around them. So the off-ramp is that Iran is ineffective at attacking their neighbors. Once again, my fear is what you mentioned before, is the IRGC consolidating, specifically with the Quds Force, creating a new kind of leadership within their structure that maintains their power and leverage over their own population, to where the Iranian people can't fix this for themselves.
How concerned should we be about China and Russia coming to Iran's defense, especially given that Iran controls a vital shipping lane for crude oil, especially to China?
That's not high on my list of concerns right now. It is interesting that we've taken out the top 2 oil suppliers of China, with Venezuela and Iran, both of them within 60 days. So of the two of those nations, I would be most concerned about any kind of response from China, but I do not think they're prepared to do so because they're watching what we're capable of right now. And what we're doing in Iran, we can do elsewhere if we have to. They're using the same systems in China for the most part, and their military also is poorly led and trained. I don't think they're going to think this would be worth it. There are other things that we could discuss with this, but China would be the number one concern there. Russia, generally speaking, well, they're used to getting supplies, specifically drones and low-cost weaponry to keep their war going in Ukraine. Cutting that off is of concern to Russia, but look how long it's taken for them to move within what I would call the size of a few counties in the United States into Ukraine. Russia's military is not that strong and that well trained either. I think they're already tied up with what they're doing.
All right. Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you so much for your perspective this morning and again for your service. We certainly appreciate it, and hopefully we can check in with you throughout the week. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.